Welcome back to the OK Not OK podcast. I am Dr. OK, and just remember, this is my last podcast for an entire week until you get me back for Dr. OK following SmackDown 1 week from now. So, I'm sorry you'll miss me, but do remember that the Sports Zoo has one more podcast tomorrow. Anyways, since Hurricane Milton knocked out all of last week's podcast, well, I have to make up for it here, so we're going to do our Who's Next segment today, in which we talk about who should be next for each of the WWE main roster championships following Bad Blood and now also following a couple Raws and a SmackDown. So, well, let's just get going and see who should be next. So, as always, we start with Monday Night Raw, and well, we know there won't be a World Heavyweight Championship match at Crown Jewel because Gunther and Cody Rhodes will battle each other for the Crown Jewel Championship. But I guess we'll just figure out who should be up next for the World Heavyweight Championship when we finally get back around to it. So let's get started, and our number one contender should be Damian Priest. Not only did he wipe the floor with everyone in the Judgment Day since they turned on him at SummerSlam, well, he has gone 4-0 on top of his already stellar 10-2-1 record, but he never got a rematch. So I think we should circle back around to that and give him one. So Damian definitely should be first. Up next on our list, it's Braun Strowman. We documented how he is now the greatest of all time at last man standing matches, and indeed, his last monster standing match made him 5-0 in such matches, and he is now 4-1-1 in all one-on-one matches in 2024 since he returned from his injury. So if that doesn't get you a shot at the title, I don't exactly know what should. So he might actually be injured after that match, and I can see why. It was pretty grueling. But we won't assume that he'll be out for a while right now, so for now, he will be at number 2. Then at number 3, well, a little surprising perhaps, but we're still going to go with Drew McIntyre. He falls to 9-5 in one-on-one matches, with pretty much every loss having CM Punk with a hand in it. And yeah, he lost the series 2-1 to CM Punk, but Punk only has 3 matches in all one-on-one action and is 2-2 if you count the Royal Rumble. So that's not good enough to be one of the top 3 contenders for the World Heavyweight Championship. So McIntyre, with his good track record here, still deserves to be number 3. But who should not be a contender for the World Heavyweight Championship? Unfortunately, it's Sami Zayn. He's now lost 4 straight title matches, 3 of which were for the Intercontinental title. Now, one of those was a disqualification loss that it wasn't his fault that that happened. And then, of course, he did just lose to Gunther on Monday Night Raw, so we can't give him another shot for a while. He had a good run as the IC champion, but for now, we'll just have to see what's up next after he can hopefully win a few more matches. And with that, let's flip over to the Women's World Championship, and same as Gunther, we're not going to have a Women's World Championship match because Liv Morgan will face Nia Jax at Crown Jewel for the Crown Jewel Championship for the women. So nonetheless, hopefully soon we'll get a title match, and we hope it will be another rematch with Rhea Ripley. She won the last match at Bad Blood by disqualification. If that's not good enough to get you another shot at the title, I don't know what would be there either. We've now had 2 really good reasons for that. So she is 4-1 in all one-on-one matches this year, and she certainly deserves another shot because someone keeps interfering to stop her from becoming champion. So give her one more shot where there is no interference, and we'll see if Mummy can bring back home the gold. Secondly, we're going to give it to Io Sky. She is still a very impressive 7-2 in one-on-one matches, and that is really hard to beat on Monday Night Raw, and her last win was against a former champion as well in Bianca Belair. so she remains a really good candidate for a title shot. And third, we're going to have to go to Lyra Valkyria. She's barely over 500 at 5-4 now. She's not had a lot of matches lately, but admittedly, there just have not been many one-on-one matches for the women on either brand really, but right now we're talking about Raw, so we have to give somebody a title shot, and if anyone, Lyra at least made it to the Queen of the Ring finals, and she's been a good helper as well on the tag team side. If we have to have a number 3 contender, I think she is a good candidate. And who shouldn't be a contender for the Women's World Championship? Well, we're gonna go with Natalya here. Yeah, she did win her last match, but it was her first win in a very, very long time. She's still just 1-2 in one-on-one action in 2024. So let's see her pile up a few more wins before we put her in the top 3. Alright, next let's move back on to the Intercontinental Championship. Jey Uso is the new champion. He's the only new champion on this list since the last time we did this. And he defeated Braun Breaker for the championship, and he already defended the title against Xavier Woods. But Braun Breaker is back on Jey's heels, so we have to give him a shot. He is 4-1 since SummerSlam, with his loss to Jey being the only loss, and he didn't get a rematch against Jey. So there's no reason not to give him a rematch. He's certainly doing the best of anyone that is in contention. Number 2, we will go with Sheamus. Yeah, he has actually been on fire recently, winning 5 out of his last 7 one-on-one matches, including that Donnybrook match against Pete Dunne. So he's now 7-4, so that's awfully good to have him get a shot for that Grand Slam Championship and the Intercontinental title. And at number 3, even though he lost the last Monster Standing match, Big Bronson Reed has won 6 out of his last 8 one-on-one matches, and that amazingly improved his record all the way back up to 500 at 7-1. So if he can get by Seth Rollins, he certainly should get a shot at the IC title. But who shouldn't get an IC title shot? Well, it's the guy that Jey Uso wanted to give one to, and it's Kofi Kingston. And if Jey wanted an easy title defense, Kofi's really it right now, as he is 0-5-1 in one-on-one matches and 0-7-1 in all singles matches. So he hasn't won one of those all year. So I guess Jey really should go after him if he wants to retain the title. But Kofi, just try to keep things working out between the New Day, get that 10-year anniversary. So stay away from the IC title for now. Lastly, on the Raw side, the World Tag Team Championships, still held by the Judgment Day, with only 1 defense in several months. But we're going to go with a brand new number 1 contender. They went from being the team that shouldn't get a shot to the number 1 contender with the Creed brothers. Yeah, I'm as shocked as you are. They lost their series against the Wyatt Six, but they've actually won 3 straight traditional tags. So they're now 3-2 in those matches. And yeah, they might be getting a couple easy wins against Otis and Tozawa, but for the Raw side, you take any win you can get for the Tag Team Championships. So Creed brothers, I guess you're up next. For the number 2 contenders, we will stick with the Authors of Pain. They won a tag team match, officially ending the Awesome Truth, so they are now 6-3. That was their first win in a long time, but they still have a pretty good record, so they get the number 2 spot. Up third, it's the recently returning War Raiders instead of Viking Raiders. They just got a win on Monday Night Raw in their return match, yet again against Otis and Tozawa, but that's not saying much, but it's still a win, and there aren't many other teams out there, so why not? We'll put them right back in there at number 3. And lastly, who shouldn't be? It's the New Day. They have now lost 3 out of their last 4 traditional tags, falling below 500 to 3-4-1-1. They've lost a couple title shots already this year, so they just need to work things out amongst themselves and get back on the same page before they can become a contender again. And with that, let's switch on over to SmackDown with the undisputed WWE Championship still held by Cody Rhodes. and his last remaining beat-up buddy is Randy Orton. He should still be the number one contender here. He didn't have any matches in the last month, but he is 8-2 in one-on-one action. That is plenty good enough to be leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. So if he can get away from his former beat-up buddy Kevin Owens, perhaps he can give a shot to Randy Orton. Surprisingly, still at number 2, it's Santos Escobar. Like I said, not a lot of action going on SmackDown, so his 7-4 record is still pretty good. And even though his last match was a loss for the US title, you would think you wouldn't get a promotion to the Undisputed WWE Championship. But really, there aren't many choices here. So Santos Escobar wants to get a title shot, so we'll give it to him. And number 3, it is that former beat-up buddy. It's Kevin Owens. He's 4-3 in one-on-one matches, and he was able to beat both members of A-Town Down Under in his last singles match, which was actually a triple threat match instead of a handicap match. So that's still a pretty good win since he was basically fighting 2-on-1 most of the time. Now, as for anything else, well, I guess he's now under Cody Rhodes' skin here a little bit. So, yeah, it seems like a good time to get a rematch that, you were maybe a little too nice in the last time. So now maybe you won't be. You'll be a little bit more brutal, attack that injured knee, which I'm sure is not injured anymore, and land that powerbomb onto the apron. And maybe then you'll land that stunner to become the new undisputed WWE Champion. But who shouldn't get a shot? Well, of course, it's AJ Styles. He came back, he immediately got injured, and took a loss because the ref had to stop the match. He's just 1-7 in all one-on-one matches this year. There's no way he should be anywhere close to this title, and he did already have 2 shots at it and lost both times. So again, AJ, time to retire, buddy. Now on to the women's side. The WWE Women's Championship still held by Nia Jax, but with her partner Tiffany Stratton potentially breathing down her throat about it. Well, she's gonna get a bit of a reprieve perhaps with Liv Morgan as her next opponent at Crown Jewel, but Naomi is going to be the new number 1 contender because she beat Nia in a non-title match just last week. She's back over 500 at 6-5-2 in one-on-one matches this year. So I think she might as well turn that non-title win into an actual title shot. Secondly, dropping down 1 spot, it's Bianca Belair. She lost her only one-on-one match to Io Sky. That was on Monday Night Raw, but it counts all of the same. So she is now 6-2 in one-on-one matches, and she really should just focus on those tag team titles, though her and Jade are really wiping the floor with anyone, so I guess she might want a shot at becoming a double champion. And number 3, even though she lost her rematch, there were certainly some weird scenarios there with Tiffany Stratton getting involved, so Bayley remains at number 3. She is still an impressive 9-3-1 in singles matches this year, even though 2 of those losses are to Nia Jax. And who shouldn't get a shot? Well, it's Tiffany Stratton. She's now lost 5 straight one-on-one matches to fall from 5-0 to 5-1, but I guess she doesn't need a title shot because she is still holding that very pink Money in the Bank briefcase. Now let's go to the United States Championship, where LA Knight has been defending that thing like crazy, so he's been an amazing fighting champion so far, and well, the number 1 contender should be whoever wins Game 7 between Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. But right now, since he's the one winning the matches, Carmelo Hayes is at number 1. He's won 4 out of the last 6 matches and improved from a 3-1 hold to evening the series at 3-3. So second, yeah, we're gonna give that to Andrade, even though he is ice cold now, losing 5 out of his last 6 matches. But he's still over 500 at 7-5, and a final win against Carmelo Hayes is plenty good enough to become the number 1 contender again, so we'll see who really should be number 1. And at number 3, well, this is embarrassing almost, but Apollo Crews is going to get this spot. He has won 2 matches in a row, and he did them convincingly, beating Giovanni Vinci very quickly both times. And yeah, he's only 2-4, but since SummerSlam, only the folks we've already talked about for both the Undisputed Championship and the US Championship have actually won one-on-one matches, and I guess also Solo Sikoa, but I'm pretty sure he's not caring too much about a US title shot, so we'll leave him off. And in fact, he has a worse record than Apollo does. So Solo's 2-6-1, so 2-4 is better, so we'll give it to Apollo. Maybe you can challenge whoever wins between Hayes and Andrade, and you can move right on up. But for now, congratulations, you made the list. And who shouldn't get a US title shot? It's the returning Jimmy Uso. He lost his return match, and his prior match before getting injured was also a loss, so he's 0-2 this year. And if you want to look back further, he was really bad in 2023 as well at 1-7. So yeah, Jimmy Uso, even though you made a nice comeback and helped out your former tribal chief, well, you know, that's not good enough to get a US title shot. And for the WWE Tag Team Championships, still held by the Bloodline, well, pretty much the contenders had gotten a couple shots, so we have a new #1 contender. It is Los Garza, Angel and Berto. They are actually above 500 at 4-3, winning their most recent tag team match. And they have a surprise opponent coming up on SmackDown this week, the MCMG, whoever that may be. But if they can win that one, I think the Bloodline certainly would be next on their list. At number 2, DIY, unfortunately we have to drop them. They're still above 500 at 6-5-1, but they had the titles, then they lost the titles, then they lost another shot at regaining the titles. So we can't keep them at #1 anymore. But still, at least they're over 500. And at number 3, also in that triple threat ladder match, it's the Street Profits, but they are under 500 at 4-5 in traditional tags, and they've lost a couple different shots at the title here recently, so we can't put them any higher than number 3. And who shouldn't get a shot? It's A-Town Down Under. They have unbelievably lost 6 out of their last 7 tag team matches. And that was who was a prior champion since WrestleMania, so really quite a fall from grace. So maybe they should just work on being on the same page. They're just 4-8 overall in tag team matches, so they have a ways to go. And finally, our Women's Tag Team Championships, still held by the incredibly dominating Jade Cargill and Bianca and Belair, 11-0 in traditional tags. They're #1 contenders. Yeah, back on top, I guess we'll have to give it to them by default. The Pure Fusion Collectives, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, which they didn't have any recent tag team matches in traditional tag format. So, it's kind of sad, but they're still 8-4 in those matches, which is good. So they're back on top to being the #1 contender. At number 2, it's Damage Control's Io Sky and Kairi Sane. They had their shot and they lost just this week on Monday Night Raw, so they fall to 3-2 in traditional tags. That's got to drop them down a peg behind the Pure Fusion Collective. And at number 3, they are still going to be on this list, the Unholy Union. They're 4-4 in all tag team matches since Clash at the Castle when they won the titles the first time. They've done a lot more losing than winning here recently, but we gave them the best record we could here for their statistic. And I guess at least they're still trying, which is more than what most teams can do. So for now, they're number 3. And speaking of not even trying, we would like to put Chelsea Green and Piper Niven into the number 3 spot, but they simply haven't had a tag team match since May 31st. They are on a 2-match winning streak, but you just can't be out of the picture for that long and be right back in there to get a title shot. Now, they did show up at ringside for Jade and Bianca's most recent title defense last Friday, against Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. So I guess maybe that means they're thinking about it. But for some reason, Chelsea went after Lash and Jakara instead. So I don't know if their focus is even on the right team here. So very confusing, Chelsea. You should have been going after Jade and Bianca here. They did boot you out of the luxury suite at Bad Blood. So maybe you should have helped the NXT crew instead. I don't get it, but you're a woman of many mysteries, so what can we say? But nonetheless, hopefully that means you're gonna be back in action here pretty soon and maybe crack that top 3. Well, there you have it. That is our list of who's next for each of the titles. So it's gonna be a weird month, it looks like, with Crown Jewel having a couple Crown Jewel Championship matches instead. So we'll just have to wait and see what's in store for these next several weeks. I'm Dr. OK, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.